Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason, and I'm here to bring you the retrospective for UFC 246, where Conor McGregor defeated Cowboy Cerrone. I have a lot to say about the fight. I have a lot to say about what we could see next out of Conor, even Cerrone. Let's get into it. Here's the show. Before we get into the actual main event, I do want to say we went 7-4 on the night. There were two fights that did not take place, even though I had made picks. The Claudia Gadelha fight and Grant Dawson fight versus Chad Skelly did not take place. So 7-4 overall for our 11 fights. Okay, so I posted this on social media. I said it last night. I was watching the fights. And I feel like for Conor McGregor in that moment, all I could think of was John Wick in the first movie where he's on his knees and he's about to kick these guys' asses and he's going, hey, you know, a lot of people are asking me if I'm back, and I'm starting to think, yeah, I'm back. And that's the kind of feeling I got out of Conor. He made such a statement against Cerrone. He didn't take a single punch from Cerrone. He landed 19 shots. He did it in kind of a weird fashion. He didn't showcase any boxing. So whatever, he's done to improve that side of his game is all kept under the jacket and cannot be revealed to the public. I'm just really impressed overall. Conor, he came out. He said that he kind of overextended and had like the maybe ring rust for the first few seconds where he way overshot on that supersonic missile of a left hand that he shot at Cerrone, but Cerrone dipped underneath, and he kind of caught a bit of a knee and hip on the chin there that I think kind of wobbled Cerrone a little bit, or at least threw him off his game plan. He did not expect, I think, Conor to come out and explode like that in the first second of the fight. I mean, obviously, Conor gets in that clinch with him. It lands those shoulder shots like no one we've ever seen land before. I mean, you could see that the speed and explosiveness of Conor was there again. This looked like the guy back from 2016. This looked like the guy that could beat anyone in the octagon on any given day. His explosiveness, landing those shots on the shoulder, broke Cerrone's nose. And, maybe I'm overplaying it because Cerrone did obviously come off of two bad damage-taking losses to Gaethje and Ferguson. However, these were still great shots, and he still did good damage. Following that, Cerrone being busted up, they end up having a small exchange where Conor ultimately is able to put him down with the head kick and then lay a little bit of ground and pound until Herb Dean came in to pull him off of him. And I think Herb Dean maybe let it go a few strikes too deep, but overall it was an okay call. And I understand him giving Conor and Cowboy both as much time as needed to try to get back into the fight, and I think he just kind of extended that a little bit extra for Cerrone there. So, amazing contest, and I'm glad to say it, Conor McGregor is back. He looks like he's back. He is speaking like a new version of himself, somewhere in the middle between where he was and where, what got him to the dance. When he was coming up, he was kind of a humble yet confident kid, and then he became larger than life, and I think he got thrown off the rails. And since the humbling by Khabib, he has found himself in a very, very nice place. And I don't think it's just Khabib. Obviously he had a lot of troubles outside of the octagon, which I won't get into here, but he's somehow found himself. He's back to making great quips. He's back to being intelligent on the microphone. He's back to looking explosive and dangerous like the Conor McGregor of old. And I think that this new Conor suits the new fans of MMA. I think it shows that you don't have to be as brash as he was and take, what is now a Colby Covington tack of just all-out, relentless, abusive, verbal attacks, and shows that you can still be smart and crafty in there. He was very dismissive of all the other competitors that were coming at him. He didn't chase anyone, and I thought that was very, very wise of him. He didn't say my name. He didn't throw out any names out there. He kept it all close to his chest, and I think that was the right move for him. And just speaking about the quips, when he said that Masvidal, looked like he was wearing a house coat like one of the Irish nanas, I laughed. I thought it was amazing. And, when I look back at Conor and Khabib and their press conference and him just going, meh, 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 right? That wasn't Conor. That wasn't the guy that we came to love as a fighter. But I think he's back. He's back in some way. Is he the old Conor? I don't know. Is he this new version of Conor? I think so. I think he's found stable ground inside and outside of the octagon, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this guy can do. So before we actually talk about that, let's talk about Cerrone. In the post-fight, I think Dana alluded to the fact that he wants Cerrone to hang it up. I don't think there's anything more in this game for Cerrone at his current age and his win-loss record right now. He's taken 3 straight losses. The only thing I can see Cerrone doing is getting a fight, maybe back in Colorado again, maybe in Arizona, going out, fighting a guy that he's always wanted to fight. And I don't know who that would be at this point for Cerrone. I really would have to dig into the archive here of legends that are still fighting and, make him a fight. Maybe he run the RDA fight back again, even though there's no title on the line. Maybe run that back. Something like that. Just something where he can go out and try to get one more win to cap off his career, maybe atone for some sins of the past and the sin, against Conor being such a slow starter. I really would like to see that out of Cerrone. If not, if they don't want to do that, I think Cerrone walks away. The last thing I want to see is Cerrone being a gatekeeper to these up-and-comers and, just fighting people that don't really matter much. Maybe these people will matter eventually, but, Cerrone has done too much in the sport to be treated like that, and I think it's time for him to hang it up, in all honesty. But that is ultimately his decision, and I'm sure he will speak to his grandma, reflect on himself, and come to the decision that makes the most sense for Cowboy. But, Cowboy gonna Cowboy, and don't be surprised if you see him in the next 90 to 180 days, pending, medical suspension and whatnot. So that's what I see out of Cowboy. I really think that retirement, coaching, keeping the BMF ranch going, I think that's his best tact. But for Conor, world's your oyster. I mean, everybody's chasing this guy again. He went from being, the infamous, the, has-been Conor McGregor to being the notorious Conor McGregor again. The guy everybody wants to ride. We got Mayweather throwing out Mayweather versus McGregor 2. We got talks of Pacquiao. We have talks of him fighting Masvidal for the BMF, going down, possibly fighting Gaethje. That one probably the lowest odds, but going and fighting Gaethje. He could step in for the Khabib-Tony fight, right? That could happen if one of them gets injured because of the history of those guys. He could go ahead and maybe challenge Usman for the 170-pound title. That's totally possible given Conor's, reputation in the business and the fact that he was a former 2-division title holder. So even though he'd be jumping the line there, I wouldn't be too upset about it. And Usman would get a big payday. Ali Abdelaziz, for anything he says about Conor, I'm certainly doesn't mind getting a cut of that payday. So there's so many options there for Conor. They're good problems to have for Conor and Dana, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, what they do next. If I was Conor, though, not taking any damage, it'd be a calculated move to take another fight with the Khabib-Tony card really so close, 3 months. I don't know if you'd want to dip onto one of those March cards or February cards, and get such a quick turnaround, and sort of jeopardize being able to fill in for one of those contests at least healthy and certainly deserving at that point. So I think what Conor does before Tony versus Khabib is very, very interesting. And part of the problem with, booking a fight is that if one of these guys do get injured, as we get closer and closer to the date of April 18th, will, Conor be able to, dip out of that contract to get into another fight? Is UFC cool with, canceling a Conor fight to move him up to Tony versus Khabib? And then, what weight class could his fight, if it's signed, be at? Is he preparing to cut to 155? Is he comfortable staying at 170? These are all these little weird questions that could come up. So I don't know what exactly they're going to do. I think that Conor's probably best tact is to probably hang a little bit and, maybe discuss options that can, come to light sometime after April 18th. So I think Conor should sit on it for a little bit and come back maybe during the month of May at the earliest, just because he has to see what can go on with that 155-pound division, and it could be very interesting, and it could be, one of the most amazing opportunities to come along for the guy. And for us fans, I after seeing Conor versus Cowboy, am convinced that Conor McGregor could potentially beat Khabib. Will he beat Khabib? I don't know. Styles make fights. I think Usman's his worst style competitor just because he's even bigger than Khabib and fights a similar style. He's going to be able to absorb those big shots of Conor, I think, pretty well. I think Khabib is beatable, though. I think Tony can beat him. I think Conor, that version of Conor, can beat him. And we'll find out how it all plays out. It's all really interesting problems to have. So hats off to Conor McGregor. I am not skeptical any longer. The Conor I expected to show up showed up, and that's what I wanted to see. All right. We also did get that fight correct, by the way. I know we're supposed to go over the retrospective here for our wins and losses. So next we had Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington. A lot of people were kind of crapping on this fight a little bit. I thought that Holly Holm fought a very intelligent fight. She was actually outstruck, and she did not get any takedowns in the fight. Pennington did get one very brief takedown and outstruck her 38-30. But Holm controlled the octagon, controlled the center, controlled the grinding affair that took place with the hand fighting and clinch work on the actual cage. And I think that Herzog did a good job not, breaking them up, even though it can be a little boring for average fans. I think it was smart because they were trying to advance position and work a bit, and they were also getting good clinch strikes in. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but I think it was fair to let it go, and I think that Holly Holm did a great job playing a very strategic, intelligent game, which didn't take very much damage. Could be fresh to come back against another bantamweight competitor, and I think she also looked really good, showing that she could, stall a fighter with heavy hands like Pennington. Even though Pennington's not always apt to let them fly, I think that she did a great job stalling her out. So we got that one correct, and I was happy to call it. In the next one, we had Alexei Oleinik defeat Maurice Greene, another fight that I was able to call correctly. This would have been some underdog money, so if you took that one, hats off to you. We had Oleinik really just kind of winning this via grappling, and Maurice Greene had more submissions than he actually had knockouts, so I was actually expecting, if Greene couldn't catch him, Oleinik to pretty much win this no matter what. If it ended up on the ground, Oleinik has so many more years of experience against Greene, and I think it played out exactly how we all kind of expected. Greene is tough, though. I mean, he was in a head and arm choke for a while. Oleinik was squeezing, especially very late into that first round, and he survived. He made it to the second, but Oleinik did get it back to the mat, and tired as he may have been. I mean, this guy was taking breaths deep into his Joe Rogan interview, several minutes after the fight ended, but Oleinik did come out the victor here and scored some performance of the night money along with 4 other fighters, which were McGregor, Brian Keller, Diego Ferreira, and Drew Dober. So no fight of the night, but 5 performance bonuses handed out overall. So hats off to Oleinik. I was able to make that call correctly. And one I was not able to call correctly, Brian Kelleher defeat Odi Osbourne. And so Osbourne looked like an amazing explosive fighter out of the gate. I thought that he was going to be able to, stand and defeat Kelleher, but Kelleher, being very intelligent, having a lot more MMA experience than Odi, went ahead and took him down and was pretty much able to make him look very, very green on the ground, and ended up getting a submission via guillotine choke at 2 minutes and 50 or 49 seconds into the first round. So I'd like to see Odi come back. It was a big stage to have your UFC debut, being actually on the main card of a pay-per-view, a Conor McGregor pay-per-view no less, and so I think he can definitely come back for a fight night, prove himself. He looked explosive as hell. I mean, actually, his opening attack, he had this like crouch Superman punch, the way he exploded up. I mean, I've never seen anything like that, and he just like so fast, so so athletic, I guess you could say, explosive against Kelleher, that I think that I really want to see him go again. And because he went out with a submission, a guillotine choke, he probably can come back pretty soon. So get back on the wagon and try your hand at this game again, Mr. Osbourne. Either way, though, we did get that one incorrect. Another one we did get right, though, Diego Ferreira defeats Anthony Pettis. This was a very, very good fight. Pettis looked like he had some shades of explosiveness in his striking game against Ferreira, but Ferreira did end up getting this thing to the mat and really showing that he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist against guys that even are good submission artists like Anthony Pettis is. He's able to get it to the mat and ultimately take his back several times during the fight, but ultimately, a minute 46 into the second round, he's able to take his back for the last time and got a rear naked choke in to end Anthony Pettis' evening in Las Vegas. So he did get that one correct by picking Diego Ferreira. In the next one, I don't think anybody made this call. Roxanne Modafferi defeats Maycee Barber in one of kind of weirder, sadder ways I've ever seen it play out. And I'm not saying Modafferi couldn't have defeated her the way she looked. It's just that Macy Barber, I think she popped her ACL, tore it, something like that, because anything after about a minute into the second round, it was all Modafferi. Barber took kind of a tough jab. I didn't think it was anything too crazy, but tough jab. She pivoted back on the leg to kind of transfer her weight, and the knee just went. She went down to the mat. She grabbed her knee, and you could see that it was just not a good time for her. And she had a massive cut above her head that came a little bit later, with Modafferi scoring some great top position. And she really just beat the hell out of Barber. She showed Barber to be the 21-year-old green fighter, 8-0 that she is. And Modafferi is a pioneer of this game. She's been doing it since Barber was 5 years old, and she showed that she's still very, very competent, given kind of the a shallow depth of the women's flyweight division. So I was really, happy to see Modafferi win. I don't necessarily like her, but she looks so much better in this one than I've seen her in the past. Like the Nico Montano fight in Modafferi was so boring, and this one, Modafferi just looked phenomenal. So despite getting this one wrong, hats off to Modafferi. She put in an outstanding performance. All right, and the next one, I'm a little salty about this one because I made this call on the podcast as well as my Patreon pick. So we ended up going 0-1 on those. I did also pick Gadelha, but obviously that fight didn't take place on Patreon or for those picks. So Sodiq Yusuff defeats Andre Fili. So Andre Fili followed the tact exactly as I called it. It just didn't come down to execution like I was hoping. So he scored 3 takedowns. He tried to keep him on the mat as much as possible, but Sodiq is so good. He was able to score, 1 submission attempt, 5 passes on the ground, and Fili was not able to hold him down and drain the gas tank like I was expecting or hoping him to. Yusuff just beat him up on the feet, outstriking him 73-49, and proved why we call him Super Sodiq Yusuff. He put on an outstanding performance and defeated Fili. I still think Fili was ultimately a good pick. He played to the game plan that I think brought him the best chance of victory. Just didn't happen like I wanted it to, and so we did pick up an L on that one. But I feel like just getting the game plan so close to being right just kind of stinks a little, but is what it is. Andre Fili was defeated by Sodiq Yusuff, and we got that one wrong. And the next one we did call correctly. Askar Askarov defeats Tim Elliott. This was kind of another similar affair. 73 strikes were thrown by Askarov, same as Yusuff, against a fighter throwing in the high 40s. Even though they also scored 3 takedowns with Tim Elliott, Askarov was able to put him away via unanimous decision and was able to outdo him and make some good passes on the ground. So kind of similar fights by the numbers. I didn't come in and actually see this one. The first one I saw was the Roxanne Modafferi-Macy Barber fight, so I'm strictly going off the numbers on this one. Then we have Drew Dober defeat Nasrat Haqparast. And in this one, I did have Haqparast, but we did get this one incorrect. Dober just caught him very early on. That is the game of MMA. Even if you're, statistically a better fighter, you still can lose if you get caught. Dober was able to put him on the mat with a great shot, and he scored a little bit of ground and pound to finally end the night of Haqparast. But given a little more time, I think Haqparast could have potentially put Dober away. It just didn't play out that way, and that is the cruel mistress that is MMA. In the next 2 contests here, we had Alexa Kane Moore and Justin Lede. I called this one correct with Kane Moore. He did pick up a win in his UFC debut by outstriking Justin Lede nearly 2-1 and scoring a great takedown for a nice unanimous decision victory. And then the last one, I kind of said it online to a guy, he was like, oh, JJ Aldrich all day. I was like, hey, buddy, don't sleep on Mazo. She's not something to overlook. And she picks up a split decision victory here, so we did get this one correct as well. Sabina Mazo, I'm not sure how close it actually was in reality. I haven't actually seen the fight or seen much of the highlights, but Mazo outstruck her 118-58. And so I find it odd that there was a split decision, but I'm just going to have to assume Aldrich did more damage. It's just you couldn't deny the sheer output of Mazo in that one. And so Mazo picked up a great win for us, and I was more than happy to call it. So overall, like I said, 7-4 in the night. I'm pretty happy with those numbers overall. We basically took the hardest beating in the middle or mid card, and then it was just a really nice home run as we went through the main event, and I'm just really happy to make those, back to the winning ways, as they say, and I'm really happy to do it on a Conor card. So that takes us to basically our next event here, where at heavyweight we are going to have Curtis Blaydes take on Junior Dos Santos in Raleigh, North Carolina on the 25th. So as always, I'll be getting those picks out to you on Monday, Tuesday timeline, and I'll be coming back with the retrospective. I'm really happy to be back to kind of the swing of things. This puts us on a really good, number of set of fights that we have to look forward to, and it's just really nice to be, like I said, back in the swing of it. We're gonna have Jones-Reyes on the 8th of February, Anderson versus Blachowicz or Blachowicz on the 15th of February, Paul Felder, Dan Hooker, February 22nd. I'm really looking forward to that one. Just great fight after great fight, leading into the Khabib Ferguson fight, which is I think the last card that they've announced so far for this year. So just really phenomenal stuff out there. We got the UFC Fight Night in London coming up. Oh man, I'm just looking forward to a ton of these. But anyways, we'll be back with those retrospective. We'll be back with those fight picks soon. So until then, happy fight picking.